that you need to understand. Now, from where to start in our Angular application? Actually, application starts with index, but from where that index gets information, how actually this entire application environment starts. So where our application related logic is present, So all our application logic is present in app folder. So app folder. This app folder, that means it comprises of application specific logic. It comprises of application specific logic. So it contains components, services, pipes, routing information, etc. So all whatever you needed for your application, all they are present inside this app. Actually, when you go to this app folder, when you look into this app folder, right, you can see into the app folder. When you look into the app folder, when you look into this app folder, observe in the app folder. Actually, by default in this app folder, you can observe already some files are provided to you. Actually, already some files are provided to you. These are nothing but by default one component is provided to you. What is a component? I will tell you. So that default component name is app component. That means that is a sample component. You can delete all those component related files and you can add your own components. So every Angular application by default comes with one component, that is app component. What is component? We are going to learn. And observe, one file is app module. This is very important for us to understand. So that means whenever you create a project, what is the first point you need to understand? When you create a project is every Angular project by default, so comes with a component. So that is app.component. Every Angular project by default comes with a component, app component. We can ignore it, we can remove it, or we can add our own components. We can just leave it. By default, application starts with this app component. That means application always starts with the default component. Application always starts with the default component. You can add your own components. And configure in startup. You can add your own components and configure in startup. So every Angular project by default comes with a component called app component. And application always starts with the default component, right? And you can add your own components and configure in the startup. Very important is, here comes very important. Your application needs components, services, pipes, modules, etc. Your application needs all this: components, services, modules, etc. for application logic. For application logic. For application logic, you need components, services, and pipes. Very important you need to know is you have to import and register every component or every component, service, pipe and module that you want. So and module that you want to use in application. This is key you have to remember. That means your application needs components, services, pipes, modules, etc. for application logic. So that means application is built by using components, services, pipes like concepts. What are those? I will tell you detailing. And important is you have to import and register every component and service after creating them. So that means if you want to use in application, that means you have to import and register every component and service and pipe and module that you want to use in application. That means where to register all our components. That means everything actually done, all the components are registered in a file. That means all registration and importing. So importing, registering and bootstrapping is defined in app.module.ts. This is important. For your application, you will add the logic. 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 But remember, the logic will not work directly. For application, you will add the logic, but the logic is not going to work directly. Whatever you create for your application need to be registered. So without registering, they cannot work. And all the registration of components, services, pipes that you want for your application is done in app.module.ts. So everything after creating, you have to register inside this app.module.ts. That means in the app folder, app.module.ts is the only important file for us. That means you go to app folder. In the app folder, others you can delete because they are sample components. The main file for us is app.module.ts. You can see in the app folder, there is app.module.ts. App.module.ts. It is very important for an Angular developer to understand this file, because this is the file from where your entire application is configured and starts. In this file, so that means this is the important one. See, at the top you can observe. So let's see what is present in this app.module.ts. So first, you can observe in app.module.ts. So it imports all components, services, modules and pipes. What are pipes? I will tell you. Services and all we will discuss.